At 1:19 a.m., co-pilot Farik Abdul Hamid said, "Good night, Malaysian 370, marking the last known communication. Then, without warning, the plane disappeared from civilian radar. No distress signals, no unusual alerts. Just gone. Investigators would later conclude the transponder was manually disabled, a move that required skill and intent. This silent disappearance became the first hint of a perplexing mystery. Military radar soon picked up MH370 flying off course. The aircraft had turned sharply west instead of continuing to Beijing. It crossed the Malaysian peninsula, passing the Strait of Malacca, before heading into the Andaman Sea and later toward the southern Indian Ocean. This was not a random deviation, it was deliberate. Only someone with deep knowledge of the plane could perform such precise maneuvers at night. The plane continued flying for 7 hours after disappearing from civilian radar. Satellite handshakes revealed it was still airborne, far from any established flight corridor. Each ping marked its location along a vast arc stretching across thousands of kilometers of ocean. The silence was haunting. No radio calls, no emergency signals, just a 777 silently crossing remote. Empty airspace, leaving no trace of its intentions. Search operations were launched immediately. Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Australia, and other nations mobilized ships, planes, and satellites. Yet initial searches focused on the South China Sea, assuming a crash occurred shortly after the plane vanished. Meanwhile, MH370 was far off in the southern Indian Ocean, a region so remote that locating a large aircraft is nearly impossible, even with modern technology. Days later, debris washed ashore on Reunion Island, Madagascar, and Mozambique. Pieces included a flaperon and fragments of the wing. They confirmed the plane had crashed into the Indian Ocean. However, this debris raised more questions than answers. The scattered fragments indicated a violent yet peculiar impact. The majority of the aircraft remains on the sea, hidden in deep ocean trenches, leaving only speculation about its final moments. Investigators proposed several theories. A sudden cabin depressurization could have incapacitated everyone on board, leaving the plane on autopilot until fuel exhaustion. Others suggested fire or electrical failure. Some considered hijacking or pilot suicide. Each theory had merits and contradictions. The deliberate deviation from the flight path could not be easily explained by mechanical failure alone, leaving many questions about human involvement. Captain Zahari's home flight simulator revealed a similar route over the southern Indian Ocean, fueling speculation of intentional action. But family, friends, and colleagues described him as stable and professional. There was no evidence of personal motive. Meanwhile, technical experts analyzed radar, satellite, and autopilot data to reconstruct the flight, but inconsistencies remained, keeping the mystery alive and drawing attention from investigators worldwide. The seventh arc, derived from Inmarsat satellite pings, defined the plane's possible locations during its final hours. This arc covered thousands of kilometers of ocean, far from any human activity. Search teams combed over 120,000 square kilometers, scanning trenches, underwater ridges, and oceanic plains. Despite advanced sonar, underwater drones, and meticulous analysis, the main wreckage was never located, deepening the enigma surrounding MH370's disappearance. Some experts speculated a hijacking, but no group claimed responsibility. There were no demands, no threats, and no ransom. A mechanical failure alone also seemed unlikely, given the precise turns and hours of controlled flight. Every piece of evidence left more questions than answers. MH370's journey into the southern Indian Ocean became a puzzle no one could solve. Families of the passengers experienced confusion, heartbreak, and frustration. Calls to authorities were met with uncertainty. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Public trust in the official investigations wavered. Media coverage highlighted both the mystery and the emotional turmoil, keeping the story alive globally. People everywhere wondered, how could a modern aircraft vanish without a trace? Technical analyses showed that autopilot could have flown the plane for hours if the crew was incapacitated. Some suggested gradual depressurization as a possible cause. But this didn't explain why the transponder was deliberately turned off, or why the plane took complex turns over the ocean. Each explanation solved one part, but created multiple new uncertainties. The mystery remained intact. Investigators also considered fuel exhaustion. Calculations indicated MH370 likely crashed in the Indian Ocean after 7 hours. Currents carried debris thousands of kilometers from the crash site. Yet, oceanography experts noted that currents alone could not account for all found fragments, leaving even the physical evidence mysterious. The ocean had swallowed most of the plane, hiding its story in deep, cold waters. Satellite data analysis revealed that MH370 continued flying south along a path far from any shipping lanes. The final ping placed it over one of the most remote areas of the Earth. No vessels, no islands, no settlements nearby. For decades, the vast Indian Ocean had kept its secrets, and on March 8, 2014, it claimed one of aviation's greatest mysteries, preserving it beneath kilometers of water. The plane's debris that washed ashore often baffled investigators. A wing flaperon, panels, and interior fragments showed unusual wear. Experts debated whether the aircraft broke apart mid-air or upon impact. The pattern of debris did not fully match simulations. Each fragment became a clue and a question mark at the same time. The more people examined it, the more uncertain the story became. International teams collaborated on search and analysis. Australia led the oceanic search using deep-sea sonar and underwater drones. France, Malaysia, and the United States contributed technology and expertise. Despite years of combined effort and millions of dollars spent, the primary wreckage remained undiscovered. The scale of the ocean and its unpredictable conditions made the search nearly impossible. Many theorists suggested pilot involvement, though none could prove intent. Some argued a deliberate action due to simulator evidence. Others countered it was circumstantial. Mechanical or electrical failure remained plausible. But each scenario conflicted with another piece of evidence. The case became a web of possibilities, contradictions, and unanswered questions, leaving the world fascinated and horrified at the same time. The disappearance also highlighted flaws in global aviation monitoring. Satellites had tracked the handshakes, but could not provide exact coordinates. Radar coverage had gaps. Communication protocols failed to detect early anomalies. The tragedy of MH370 was not only the loss of lives, but the exposure of vulnerabilities in modern air travel, making it a lesson for both aviation authorities and global security organizations. In the final analysis, MH370 represents more than an aviation accident. It symbolizes uncertainty, human curiosity, and the limits of technology. A Boeing 777, fully loaded and modern, vanished in an era of constant surveillance. Families, investigators, and researchers continue to search for answers. And until the wreckage is found, questions about the flight path, the final hours, and the fate of those aboard remain hauntingly unanswered. H370's story is a chilling reminder that even in our technologically advanced world, mysteries can still exist. A plane large enough to be seen from space disappeared without a trace. The silence that followed, no radio calls, no distress signals, left the world grappling with fear and fascination. Every attempt to explain the disappearance has only deepened the mystery, keeping MH370 in the public imagination. Some theories suggest a mechanical failure caused autopilot to keep the plane in flight until fuel exhaustion. Others emphasize human intervention, whether accidental or deliberate. Satellite data analysis shows hours of controlled flight. The exact combination of causes remains speculative. Investigators continue to study all possibilities, aware that any small clue could finally solve a decade-long mystery. Experts also noted the role of ocean currents in scattering debris. Fragments found in Africa and islands thousands of kilometers away confirmed that the aircraft crashed far from the official search zones. Each discovery fueled speculation and raised questions about the plane's final trajectory. The ocean, vast and deep, became both a grave and a vault, hiding the truth in its silent depths. Family members of passengers remained deeply affected. Many refused to believe the official narrative. They follow new leads, consult private investigators, and track satellite images. Public attention keeps the story alive, as do documentaries, news outlets, and aviation forums. The human need for answers persists, highlighting the emotional impact of a tragedy that affects people across the globe. Independent researchers also proposed alternative crash locations based on drift models, satellite analysis, and oceanography studies. These efforts illustrate the complexity of the mystery and the dedication of those who refuse to accept unsolved as the final answer. Every new hypothesis sparks debates and keeps MH370 at the forefront of aviation history discussions. Some speculate the crew may have faced medical emergencies, with hypoxia or decompression incapacitating passengers and pilots. But even in these scenarios, turning off the transponder and maneuvering the aircraft precisely remains unexplained. Each technical and human factor is weighed against others, forming a tangled web of uncertainty that experts continue to examine. The scale of the search effort was unprecedented. Multinational teams deployed satellites, sonar, ships, and aircraft to comb the Indian Ocean. Despite the extensive resources, the plane's exact resting place remains unknown. These failed searches added to the frustration, illustrating how vast oceans can render even the largest modern aircraft invisible, almost as if swallowed by the sea itself. Debris analysis revealed the flaperon and other pieces had signs of saltwater erosion and impact damage. Investigators studied these fragments to estimate the crash dynamics. Yet, the size and distribution of debris could not fully explain the breakup process, adding more ambiguity. The ocean kept most of the aircraft hidden, leaving questions that may never be answered unless the main wreckage is located. Satellite communications provided the only clue to MH370's final hours. Hourly handshakes indicated continued flight, forming the seventh arc. These pings lacked precise coordinates, but analysts used them to estimate a path stretching into the southern Indian Ocean. Each new calculation refined the search area, yet the vastness of the ocean ensured the mystery would persist. Theories of hijacking, sabotage, or military involvement exist, but no conclusive evidence has emerged. Some suggest covert operations or miscommunication obscured data. Others believe technical failure combined with human error. Each theory sparks debate, and the absence of a definitive explanation ensures that MH370 remains a story of intrigue, suspense, and tragedy in modern aviation history. The psychological impact of the disappearance is profound. Families, friends, and the global audience struggle with uncertainty and grief. The fact that no bodies or wreckage were found immediately intensified the emotional toll. Human imagination filled gaps in knowledge with speculation, fear, and rumors, creating an enduring sense of unease that still resonates years later. Experts agree that the exact sequence of events is impossible to determine without the black boxes. Flight data and cockpit voice recorders would provide crucial information, revealing the plane's final moments. Until then, investigators rely on satellite data, debris analysis, and simulation models. Each method provides insight, but also highlights how elusive the truth really is. The MH370 case also exposed gaps in aviation monitoring and tracking. Satellite coverage is limited, radar has blind spots, and communication protocols failed to alert authorities in time. These lessons have prompted discussions about improving safety and global coordination to prevent future disappearances. But the void left by MH370 persists as a stark warning of technology's limits. Despite billions spent and thousands of hours of search effort, the aircraft's exact resting place remains unknown. The southern Indian Ocean is unforgiving, with deep trenches, strong currents, and rough conditions making recovery nearly impossible. Each year, experts revisit the data, hoping that new technology or accidental discoveries might finally solve the decade-long mystery. The human story behind MH370 is as compelling as the technical mystery. Passengers had families, dreams, and lives interrupted forever. Investigators, engineers, and oceanographers continue working tirelessly, motivated by responsibility and curiosity. Every clue, every piece of debris, every analysis contributes to understanding, but the final chapter remains unwritten. For aviation enthusiasts, MH370 is a case study in both risk and uncertainty. It shows how even modern technology is vulnerable to unexpected events. It demonstrates that human error, mechanical failure, or intentional action can combine in ways that defy prediction. The case remains a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the power of mystery. Ultimately, MH370 is a story of questions more than answers. Who turned the plane? Why was the transponder switched off? What caused the hours-long flight into the open ocean? Why did no distress calls come through? Until new evidence emerges, the world can only speculate. The vanishing of 239 people will continue to intrigue, frighten, and mystify for generations. MH370 may never be fully solved. Yet the story endures through the memories of passengers, the relentless work of investigators, and the curiosity of millions worldwide. A Boeing 777 vanished in one of the most monitored eras of human history. Its silence continues to haunt the world, reminding us that even today, mysteries remain beyond our grasp.